Last week on MCrider, we talked about planning your route, and we talked about how to find the best roads for your next motorcycle trip. But what we didn't spend much time about is how far you should travel in any given day. So this week on MCrider, we're going to talk about it. It's going to be a different answer for different people, and it's going to be dependent on what type of ride you want to make and what type of bike you're riding on as well. Hey, my name's Kevin. You found MCrider, where we help you become a better rider. We release a weekly video every Friday morning focused on skills or road strategy to help make you a better rider. You can support the channel at mcrider.com/support, get access to the forums, and a part of the forums is the field guide with training exercises that you can practice on any open parking lot to help you improve your skills. So how many miles can you ride a motorcycle in a day? I think for me, the biggest day I've had on a bike was a little over 700 miles, and that was a lot of two-lane highways through Arkansas. So it wasn't like being on the interstate, and that added to my fatigue. And at the end of that day, I was pretty worn out. So 700 miles on two-lane highways is a pretty big day. But let's talk about some tips and things that you can do to increase your comfort on a longer trip, how you can stay more awake and aware, and some guidelines that you can use to help determine how many miles you can ride in any day. I think one of the first things that you can do is the gear that you choose to ride with to start your journey out. Having correct fitting gear, having a jacket that fits you well, some gloves that don't bind up under your hands, boots that don't hurt your feet, riding pants that are comfortable, can either keep you cooler on a hot day or warmer on a cold day, makes all the difference in the world. And to me, that's the difference in wearing cheap gear and more quality gear. It's one of those things that it's kind of what you get what you pay for. The more expensive gear I've found has allowed me to ride longer days and be more comfortable in doing it. And one of the most important pieces of gear, not only for protection, but also for touring on a motorcycle, is a full face helmet. Because a full face helmet's going to protect you from that wind blast. And over the course of a day, having wind on your face and constantly beating on your face can add to your fatigue. So a full face helmet is going to help in that regard, something that's going to protect you from the wind blast, help keep your eyes from drying out, your lips from drying out, and it's just going to generally make you more comfortable as you ride. But what you don't want to do is go buy that full face helmet and the next day start out on your trip. You want to make sure that you've worn it, that you've broken it in, and it's something that you can wear for longer periods of time, because occasionally you'll put a full face helmet on at the dealership and you'll have it on for 30 seconds. And the first time you go out for an hour-long ride, 30 minutes in, you feel like that helmet's got you in a headlock. So you want to make sure that you don't have any tight spots, and it's something that you can live with for a longer day in the saddle. Something else that makes a big difference is the seat that's on your motorcycle. There is all the difference in the world in riding around town on a motorcycle and going out for an extended day trip, logging several hundred miles per day, and the seat makes a huge difference. And I think sometimes motorcycle manufacturers are in business with some of the seat manufacturers, because I very rarely had a motorcycle where I could live with the seat for any extended period of time. Even my Road King, it was a fairly comfortable seat, and the seat that I replaced it with was designed by Harley as well, but it's a police seat. And that's one thing that I found as well, that the more your seat looks like it came off a tractor, the more comfortable it's going to be for something extended day in the seat. And the police know what they're talking about going with that police seat, because it gets you up, helps straighten you up, but it's a very comfortable seat. And it's probably the most comfortable seat I've had on any motorcycle I've ever owned. So shop around. There's some aftermarket seats that you can look at, and sometimes it's just trial and error to find something that fits you right, but finding a seat makes a huge difference. Now, some guys choose to go with this air hock, And I don't have any experience with an air hawk, but there's some guys that just swear by it, and it's something that you may want to try before you go out and spend the money on a custom seat or an aftermarket seat for your motorcycle. And it's something that you can easily put on and take off when you need it. So I'll have a link to an air hawk, and you can do some research on that on your own. But a lot of guys find that really beneficial as opposed to going for an aftermarket seat. If you got any experience with that air hawk, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you guys as well and hear how that works out for you. The next thing I want to list under comfort are things that'll keep you comfortable on a longer trip, and also is going to protect your hearing, is earplugs. Now, I ride with earplugs all the time, but particularly on longer trips, you want to have some kind of hearing protection in. It's going to keep you more comfortable, and at the end of the day, you won't feel like you just got back from a rock concert because your ears won't be ringing, and it's going to save some of your hearing in the long term. So a set of earplugs is going to make you much more comfortable, and it's going to protect your hearing to boot. The type of motorcycle you're on is going to make a huge difference as well. There's a reason why touring bikes are so big. Not only can you carry a lot of stuff on them, but they handle the wind a whole lot better. They're heavier so that they're more stable at highway speeds and more stable out on the highway. And sport bikes are made for riding fast, but they're not made for riding long distances. And I believe that any bike can be a touring bike if you're willing to put up with some of its shortfalls, but the type of motorcycle that you've got is going to make a big difference in the number of miles that you can travel on it in any given day. So now we're comfortable on the bike, we got the right gear, we got the right motorcycle, hearing's protected, we got our full face helmet on. We head out for a long ride, but how are you going to stay alert during that ride? Now remember, riding a motorcycle requires a lot of mental awareness. So the last thing you want to do is get out on a long ride and just fall into the lull of riding down the road like you often do in a car. I mean, I've had times in a car where I've driven a pretty extended distance, and it's like I snap to at some point and I go, man, what has just happened for the last 10 minutes? And you can just kind of go into autopilot in a car. If that happens on a motorcycle, you could be in real trouble. So how do you stay mentally alert and aware of what's going on when you're going to be on the motorcycle for a long time? Well, the first thing, and probably the most important thing, is to take regular breaks. And the most important part of regular breaks is you want to take a break before you get fatigued. So if you're out on a ride and before you start feeling tired, if you can take a break, stretch your legs, do some deep knee bends, touch your toes, just stretch out a little bit. If you do that before you get tired, it's going to help you extend the day and feel fresh longer. Once you get fatigued, it's a much harder task to overcome that, and it becomes much more difficult to get on top of that fatigue once it's already set in. But if you take breaks before, you're going to be in much better shape. Now, this is one that some people are either totally for or they're totally against, but for me it helps a lot. That's listening to something through a Bluetooth headset, whether it's music or it's books on tape or it's podcasts. Just something to keep me mentally in tune, to keep me mentally aware. Other people find it's distracting. For me, it helps keep me focused because it keeps my mind engaged, and it helps me to beat the boredom or beat the, just the drone of riding down the road, having something in my ear, really audio tapes or books or podcasts, something like that, helps keep me much more aware and awake, and then I'll substitute that in with music occasionally. But some people find it distracting. If you do, then you may want to avoid it. But for me, having a Bluetooth headset and having some type of audio in my ears helps a ton. As you're on the road, you probably want to avoid any heavy meals. So I eat a light breakfast, eat something light during lunch, and have more breaks, food breaks, than I normally would. So I don't ever eat a whole lot at any one given time, but I found that lighter snacks and something healthier helps along the way, and sometimes that can be hard to find out on the road, to find something that's healthy at the gas station. But just having some nuts or something like that to help keep the hunger back and help keep you alert and aware, and eating those at regular breaks helps a lot. And the final thing that I'll mention to help keep you awake is staying hydrated. So drinking water on a regular basis helps a lot. Now, a lot of guys will use a Camelback so that they don't have to pull over constantly to get a sip of water. I've never ridden with a Camelback, but I used to use one when I would coach MSF classes. I'd keep a Camelback on all day, and it did keep me more mentally aware and from feeling so fatigued at the end of the day by just having regular little sips of water along the way. So a Camelback, or at least taking regular breaks and getting water. Now, I'll use energy drinks as well, but I use that more towards the end of the day to try to stay awake for that last hour or so. If you start on energy drinks early in the day, say around noon, and you plan on riding till 5, they begin to lose their effect, and the last 2 or 3 hours can be real misery in my experience, but it can kind of help you for an hour or so. So for me, using energy drinks or coffee or something like that, I try to use it at the end of the day to push through for that last hour, hour and a half, but I try not to go to those too early in the day, using water just to stay hydrated along the trip. One of the biggest things that affects the number of miles that you can travel per day is the types of roads that you choose to ride on. Now, there's a big difference between riding on 2-lane roads and riding on an interstate. And that depends on what type of trip that you're on. Usually when my family and I, we go on vacation, usually the destination is our vacation time. So the road trip is more to get to the destination. When I ride a motorcycle, as soon as I pull out of the garage, that is my vacation. That's the part that I get the joy from, is getting from where I'm at to where I'm going. So I choose to ride a lot of 2-lane roads whenever I'm out on a motorcycle. When I'm in the car, I choose the interstate. Now, if you're planning on getting somewhere in particular and you have to be there at a certain time on your motorcycle, you may want to choose the interstate, because you can log more miles that way, and you'll have access to a lot more food and gas stations along the way, but they tend to be boring, so it's not going to be as an exciting a trip. Some of the pros and cons of riding on 2-lane roads is you're going to get to see a whole lot of the country that you wouldn't see otherwise. You're going to get a real feel for the areas that you're riding through. But the cons, you're going to be stuck a lot of times just eating what some small towns got available, and you're going to have to plan your gas stops maybe a little more carefully along the way. And if you're staying in hotels, you may not have as many big options as you would by traveling by interstate. And to me, traveling on 2-lane roads, you don't deal with as many large trucks or 18-wheelers, not as much traffic. The people that you find out are always willing to talk or want to talk about your trip, and that's kind of nice to be able to get to know some of the people along the way and to get to see some sights that you wouldn't necessarily see if you go through the interstates. Now, there's a reason why the interstates are built where they are, and it's because that's the easiest place to put down a road. So you're going to lose a lot of the curves and a lot of the elevation changes that you would find on smaller 2-lane highways and riding off the beaten path a little bit. So for me, a good day on the motorcycle is, 500 to 600 miles, depending on the area that I'm riding through. If I'm on interstates, I could do a little bit more than that and still stay fairly comfortable. If I'm on 2-lane roads, sometimes it may be 250, 300 miles, depending on how often I stop to take photos or stop to look at things along the way. So a lot of it just really depends on what you want to do. Is the travel aspect, is the riding part of it, is that your vacation? Or are you looking to get somewhere at a certain particular time And if that's the case, you may want to stick to interstates and get as many miles in during the day as you can. But for a new rider, I'd say, plan on 300, maybe 400 miles in a day is about what you should plan. For experienced riders, you may be able to get a little bit more than that. And again, a lot of that's going to depend on what type of motorcycle you're on as well, and how many miles you can log on any given day. So what I leave out is there tips that you've got to help extend your day on a motorcycle. I'd love for you to leave comments. We'll be having a discussion of this at the forums. You can learn more about the forums at mcrider.com/support, how to get access to it. We'll be discussing this video and a whole lot of other motorcycle related topics over there, so I hope you'll join us. You'll also get access to the field guide with the training exercises to help make you a better rider. So leave a comment below, tell us what you think, tell us the tips that you've got to extend your day in the seat. And until next week, guys, this is Kevin with MCrider, and we'll see you on the road.